Hi everybody,
Hello.
welcome to our online discussion of May 22, 2015.
Sorry we're late.
Sorry, really sorry, my fault. Great, okay. I'll introduce you, Amy Asbrook, and myself, I'm Chris Sardebré from Vivant-Not Yet. Amy is the director. Okay, Vivant-Not Yet is a project of the Council of Canadians with Disability. Our goal is to inform, unify, and give voice to the disability right opposition to assisted suicide, euthanasia, and other end-of-life practices that discriminate against people with disability. That's our goal.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We don't always achieve it.
Okay. The background is okay.
Don't play with the background.
Okay. There are many reasons to oppose the legalization of assisted suicide and euthanasia. Here are just a few. It's unnecessary. Everyone has the option to commit suicide or to refuse medical care and have palliative sedation on demand.
Right, and that means pretty much anybody with a disability can commit suicide. So all this, I can't commit suicide, doesn't pass.
Secondly, it's discriminatory. While people without disabilities receive suicide prevention services if they express a wish to die, people with disabilities will be encouraged and assisted to kill themselves.
Right, so of all the people who are suicidal, the disabled ones will be selected out for assisted suicide, and the rest of them will get suicide prevention.
So it's discriminatory. Okay. Choice is an illusion. The choice to die cannot be free as long as people with disabilities don't have the choice in where and how to live.
Right, and we all know that because of discrimination, we don't have those choices.
No, it's basically the choice between a kind of prison and dying.
Yeah.
So the fourth one is safeguards don't work. Where these practices are legal, safeguards do not prevent people from disabilities from being wrongly killed.
And we're going to see an example of that today.
Great. Or
No, not great.
Goal of our online discussion are to give disabled people a place to talk about these issues among ourselves from our point of view.
Right.
Okay. To recognize our experience and expertise in dealing with discrimination and medical system. To take our place in public debate aside from conservative and so-called progressive.
Right, because our point of view is actually more progressive than progressives. We look deeper at the issue.
Okay, today's topics: pee, poo, and other taboos.
Yeah.
And news briefs, as every week.
Okay.
Okay,
Mine.
that's your part.
Okay. The topic of assisted suicide and euthanasia make a lot of people very uncomfortable to the point that they use euphemisms to avoid saying certain words. People use euphemisms to talk about subjects that are hard to talk about or embarrassing to soften or back away from disagreeable things. And
At least that we could say.
Right.
At least.
And for example, here are some of the euphemisms for assisted suicide, such as medical aid in dying, end-of-life care, the right to die, dying with dignity, or going to Switzerland. That's a new one.
Like it is a small traveling.
Yeah, well, I think that's probably more
Leisure.
common in Europe.
Yeah.
Because people do go to Switzerland. When the Hemlock Society and Compassion and Dying, which are two groups in the United States, merged back in the middle part of the last decade, they adopted the name Compassion and Choices, which doesn't even mention the idea of death, let alone use the word. Why use euphemisms? Because the public is more likely to support assisted suicide and euthanasia if the word suicide is
It's not there.
Right.
Yeah.
And they did focus groups on this, and they said, yeah, just leave out the word suicide and people will take it more easily.
Yeah. Buy a new car broken.
Right.
If you remove the broken part,
Right.
you will sell the car easier.
Right. Right. Compassion and choices put pressure on the professional organizations like the American Public Health Association and government agencies in Oregon to remove the word suicide from their descriptions of assisted suicide. So it's not just that they're trying to soften the language, they're changing exactly what it is. So in Oregon, it's called Using the Death with Dignity program, law.
Yeah.
So that's a little misleading.
Not using assisted suicide.
Right. When we got our marriage license, we didn't use the marriage license law.
Yes.
And also in Oregon, these suicides are not counted as suicides, so they don't go into the suicide statistics.
We could do something about birth. You could use the law about using of the hospital for giving birth or something like that, and not
having a birth certificate.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. I have a certificate that my mother used the hospital at a certain time.
Yeah.
Yeah. People are so afraid to talk about death that the first draft of Quebec's Act concerning end-of-life care didn't even indicate that, quote, medical aid in dying, unquote, included euthanasia. And in the final version, the term end of life is not defined. So it's hard to know, that the person is dying. And in the final version, there's only one little place where it says that the doctor would kill the person, but otherwise, it's hardly there. You would hardly know it.
If it's somebody who is completely out of the blues of the thinking, he could read his law and think it's something as a care for somebody.
Right. On any of those euphemisms, they don't talk about dying. So people with disabilities embody many characteristics or qualities that are unpleasant to the non-disabled, such as the possibility of becoming disabled, a reminder of our mortality, or the loss of control of physical functions like urination, defecation, and salivation. So, a lot of people don't want to think about becoming disabled.
Yeah,
but
a lot.
But that's us. And so those are three things that people don't like to think about and talk about, but it's three things that we have to deal with all the time. So it's kind of no wonder people push us away, because even in the regular language, people push away those words.
Yeah.
So for each of these, there are euphemisms. So for the possibility of becoming disabled, we talk of loss of independence or loss of autonomy. For the reminder of mortality, we talk about end of life. And for bodily functions, we talk about pee and poo and drool. So we don't use the real words. In discussion of assisted suicide and euthanasia, you'll also hear a lot of euphemisms. And so here are some of them. First is dignity. And in the world of assisted suicide, people use the word dignity to mean to be able to maintain your personal hygiene and control of your bodily functions like eating, urinating, defecating, etc., and the ability to use the toilet and wipe yourself without help. Dignity also includes bathing, personal grooming, and eating in a normal fashion according to ordinary rules of politeness. So people say, I don't want somebody to have to feed me. I don't want to be drooling. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. To them, that's loss of dignity.
But there's no link between dignity and those things.
Right. So loss of dignity is a person who can't do those things without help or needing equipment or special products, like a feeding tube. People talk about that's a loss of dignity. Or people who don't do them well, like somebody who, when they eat, they, food comes out of their mouth or something. And that's the problem, because that's what people call loss of dignity, but it has nothing to do, because dignity is really existential and it's a state of mind. And dignity, you can lose dignity by doing something bad, by hurting somebody, or, polluting, massive pollution. That's
massive pollution,
undignified.
or to be a thief, or a
murderer, or
murderer. I think you lose that dignity when you do those kind of things against
other people. Yeah, but it's not something that your physical characteristics can.
Not at all.
Right. Okay, independence is another one. In the assisted suicide dictionary, it means a whole and healthy body and mind. And so the loss of independence means it happens when a person develops a physical, mental, or sensory disability. In reality, it's not the limitation that causes the loss of independence. As such, it's more the environmental barriers, the prejudice, the public policy, and that deprive people of choices and options.
Bus doesn't take care about people on wheelchair, or you could not have your normal transportation. This affecting the mobility, not because you doesn't have leg or you couldn't move your arm or thing like that. It's just the way things are built or accessible.
Right. If your house is built with a bunch of stairs and you suddenly develop a disability, can't walk up and down the stairs.
A split level for wheelchair guys doesn't.
It's the house that's the problem. It's not you. Right. Okay. Suffering is another word that's bounced around a lot. And in the assisted suicide world, it means extreme physical pain and symptoms. And except if you look at the reasons people ask for assisted suicide and euthanasia, and those reasons have more to do with becoming disabled than they do with extreme physical pain and symptoms.
Yeah, pain is only 2 to 5% of in reality, what happens.
Right. And in fact, people, palliative care and pain management can deal with most of the pain and symptoms. And it's really, people are concerned about these things that we're already talking about, loss of, fearing that they're undignified if they can't control their bodily functions.
But fear of the pain is a factor.
Right. A lot of people are afraid of pain.
You are afraid to be afraid.
Right, but that's what they call suffering, not the physical stuff. Mercy and compassion are other words, and they're really euphemisms for disregard and contempt. So when I started doing this, I did a paper on killing children with disabilities, and what we found was that when parents killed their disabled children, they were not treated less harshly by the criminal justice system. And that means that the children were, even though the parents said these are mercy killings, the children were seen as less important. So they were, the mercy was really disregard and contempt of the children's lives.
Against the children,
And that's also what happened when Tracy Latimer died. Nobody cared about Tracy. Everybody cared about her father. So choice in the assisted suicide movement means only the choice to die.
You have the choice between dying and to be dead.
Right. Free and informed means that you agree that death is the best and only option after hearing biased information, receiving no support or assistance for living, and having no viable choices. That's what free and informed means.
You are not free. You doesn't have any transportation. You doesn't have any support, and nobody take care of you. So you have to choose to die.
Right. They talk about informed. That means the doctor has to tell you what your diagnosis is, how long he thinks or she thinks you're going to live, and what kind of medical treatment. But the doctor doesn't say well, you know, if you have ALS, we could put you on a ventilator and you could live a lot longer that way.
Yeah, and even it could be reasonably, not normal, but reasonably good life.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. The way doctors talk about these kind of interventions, feeding tubes and stuff, they say, oh, you know, it's horrible. You don't want that.
Horrible,
It's
which
awful.
is not true. We know people
Right.
who are using those things and they like their life.
Right, and also those doctors have no obligation to talk about getting on personal assistance programs where you get help in your home. They don't even know about it. They just assume that you're going to end up in an
Anyway,
institution.
if you are dead, you cost nothing.
Right, exactly. In the world of assisted suicide, killing means medical care because that's what they're pushing.
Killing become a care.
Right.
Oof, I don't want a doctor who think like that.
Yeah, exactly. A person's will or desire means what society wants for that person, not what the person wants.
Yeah. We want your good and we will have.
Right. We want what's good for you according to us.
Yeah.
Right. So rights can mean one of two things. Either it's an obligation, as in the right to die, and meaning that, you know, because you're disabled, you kind of have an obligation to die. Or number two, it's only what we say they are, as in you have a right to life for a few months. Because that's essentially what the Supreme Court said. It said you have a right to life, you know, for that last few months, but it doesn't say, you know, you have a right to have good quality care or care in the community or liberty interest in having care in the community. It just says you have a right to life for those few months, you know, between when you can't, according to you, commit suicide and when you die, and when somebody else kills you, I should say. And safeguards are mirage or distraction. That's a better way to think of it. And finally, oversight commission equals window dressing. That means it's there and it looks nice, but it doesn't actually do anything. All they really do is examine the doctor's reports, which only tells you what the doctors have told you. It doesn't tell you what's really going on in the hospitals.
Yeah, and if you do something wrong, you just bury your mistake.
Right.
And you never report anything that you do wrong.
Right, and this has been shown in other countries where, you know, they look at studies of the reports by the doctors, oh, there's no problem there. But then when they look at studies that are done on all the deaths in a certain period of time, they trace back from those deaths what actually happened. They find that there are a lot of
Will you
deaths.
be your own whistleblower?
Right, exactly.
No. Doesn't work.
Right. So what can we do about this? One is to try to come back and be in our bodies as a society. And I'm not talking about that pretty 25-year-old yoga instructor who says, sit in your body and breathe. Now breathe deeply into your body. Relax. No, I'm talking about a real person who has stinky farts and, you know, burps and does all those things that bodies do.
A bit of drooling.
Yeah, I drool at night. Do you drool at night? Do you drool at night?
I don't know.
I do. So anyway, yeah, people who live in their real bodies, you know, real human bodies. And another thing is to not feel any shame, show no shame. And there are some other positive signs. What?
A limp, no teeth.
Yeah.
It's the normal life.
Right, exactly. Some positive signs we've been seeing. First is that the baby boom generation is getting older.
Yeah.
And these are the people who, you know, when it was in the 60s, they all said, peace and love and understanding, yay, we're so cool. And then in the 80s, they were the ones who were saying, we're all yuppies, we're buying up everything we see, and now they're all in their 60s and they're saying, we're old and crabby.
Not really, but we are getting old, and we are slowly became in pension.
Yep.
Okay, and pension is low fee, so we're getting poor,
Yep.
at least poorer,
Yep.
and bones are a little bit more stiff.
Freaky. But in fact, you know, the baby boom generation, there are so many people who are getting to that point that they, the economic drive behind this generation is catching up to them. So services and trends are having to respond to their needs. So one thing that you're seeing that I've never seen before is advertisement for incontinence products. And
That's new.
yep. I mean, we've always seen the ads for Geritol and the denture creams and that kind of stuff, but it's when I saw Whoopi Goldberg advertising incontinence pads, that to me was a really good sign that, you know, capitalism, I may have bad feelings about it sometimes, but it came to the rescue.
Yeah.
To make, by just in those ads, it started to make, you know, urinary incompetence to be cool, because hell, Whoopi Goldberg, she's talking about it.
Yeah.
She's making jokes about it. It's normal. It's okay. Use this product. You can control it. Well, not even control it. It's just like, we'll take care of it. You
Yeah.
get this product, no problem. And now they've got these things where everybody's up dancing, just like they have with the tampons. It first started advertising tampons.
It's not really a party, but it's just normal life.
Right, exactly.
And you just have to compare. I wear glass, and it is prosthesis.
Prosthesis.
But most people wear glasses. It's normal. So
Right.
why other thing is not normal?
Right.
It is normal.
Right, exactly. So the disability community has also been working on this. A couple of campaigns that are already underway. The first is called Get Your Belly Out. And it's people with inflammatory bowel disease, so Crohn's disease, things like that, who have colostomy bags and other scars from operations, and they take pictures of their belly, sometimes with the colostomy bag, sometimes without, and they've got a whole site on Facebook called Get Your Belly Out, and they've done some really great stuff, just, you know, showing their colostomy bags. That's so cool. So that's one thing. And then John Kelly, who works with Not Dead Yet in the United States, has a campaign called We Love Our Tubes. And that's to talk about everything from feeding tubes to breathing tubes to...
And we use a kind of breathing tube, because at night we wear CPAP, which is a pump who push air in our nose because we snore too much.
Right, because our throat closes down. And
So
can't
at
breathe.
bed we look like a couple of astronauts in the bed.
Right, exactly.
It's just funny.
Right, and you know, lots of people use stuff like that, and it's not freaky and it's not weird.
Not at all.
So talking about the things that we need and the things that we do because we're disabled in a more ordinary sense is going to make it less scary to people, and maybe they'll stop using you know, words like undignified to mean that you need to use a feeding tube or something like that. But it's going to be a long haul to work on it. So we have a couple of news briefs. The first is that the Supreme Court of England has decided that 3 disabled people have a right to liberty. It might seem a little obvious, but it has to be decided.
In a free country, liberty is a kind of a minimum.
Right. Justice Mary Hale, talking about these 3 people who lived in community residence, basically said that even a gilded cage is still a cage. The case involved 2 women with intellectual disabilities and a man with cerebral palsy. According to an article in the Telegraph newspaper, well, the website, I should say, the plaintiffs lived in community residences. One of the women was prohibited from leaving her foster home Another was physically and chemically restrained. That means she was not only tied down, but they gave her drugs to, make her
just
calm, knock her out and make her calm. And the man with cerebral palsy was subject to what they called interventions when he displayed what they called challenging behaviors.
Yeah.
And that's, if you want to have euphemisms,
That's what.
those are
A
euphemisms. Intervention means probably they tackled him on the ground.
Yeah.
And challenging
tie in and
right. Challenging behavior is probably that he complained too much. So talk about
make too much noise.
Right. Or that he was, spastic and he ran his wheelchair into something, any number of things could have happened, but those are euphemisms.
Yeah.
And in the decision, Justice Hale said, it is axiomatic, that means it's assumed, that people with disabilities, both mental and physical, have the same human rights as the rest of the human race. Well, we
are human.
Yeah, except for according to Peter Singer, but there you go.
Maybe he's not.
I don't know. He's an alien, not from another country. He's from
far away.
He's from Australia, but that's not that kind of alien.
Maybe further Mars or Venus or whatever.
Yeah. It may be that those rights have sometimes to be limited or restricted because of their disabilities, but the starting point should be the same as for everyone else. The justice also said, it may be that, I'm just reading something that I already wrote. So that's basically what she said, and that she, excuse me, I misprinted something here and then that got lost. Okay, so basically they have the liberty right, even though they're living in institutions, they should have the right to go out and not be restrained and not be limited in what they do.
So you start from liberty and you may restrain a bit if something goes wrong for their safety or the safety of everybody else.
Right. But
not the opposite.
Right.
We make sure that you are tied down, and if we have time, we will give you some liberty.
If you earn enough points, we'll let you.
Not the same way of thinking.
Right. Okay. So Global Dispatch, which is another online service, reported this week that an 80-year-old woman with dementia was euthanized in the Netherlands after a judge ruled in favor of her family, who claimed that she had a death wish. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the family say that she had a death wish. But
she couldn't speak for herself.
No.
Okay. So the court's ruling came despite the fact that the woman had no advance directives. And
she never wrote one.
She never wrote anything down. And the medical team stated that she was not capable of expressing her alleged will to die.
So normally, a court should rule that there's no will to die, so let the person live, the people live.
Right, okay. And this is what happened in the Bentley case in British Columbia. This Margot Bentley is a woman who at one point said she wanted to die, but now she's got dementia and they offer her to eat by putting a spoon near her mouth and she eats.
So she wants to eat.
Right, but her family says, no, she wants to die. But the court said, look, as long as she's eating, that's her expressing her desire to live, so leave her alone.
Which is normal.
Right.
But the judge in Netherlands say, no, she wants to die, kill her.
Right, and she's euthanized.
Yeah.
And, I was going through and making the changes from my last week's script, but I know that I used this line last week, but this is yet another example of the slippery slope. So every week...
But a slippery slope doesn't exist.
Right, exactly.
The opposite side say to us, some slippery slope doesn't exist, but we see it every day.
Right, we come across stuff every day or very often, and every week I can come up with something that shows that there's a slippery slope, except for it doesn't really exist. according to the
So
judge.
we see it, but it doesn't exist.
Right. It's like the elephant in the living room. Don't anybody talk about it. There's an elephant in the living room. Okay, so in order, you can, excuse me, how to get in touch with us. If you want to watch our videos, which we have videos from September 13th to now, September of 2013 up to now, you can look for Euthanasia and Disability either on Google Plus or on YouTube. You'll find my YouTube channel. And there's actually on my YouTube channel, there's a nice video of a couple of adolescent boys showing how to use a feeding tube. It's really cool. How to participate online, if you want to be a part of this discussion, you send me an email, your email address, and I'll send you a link to join us live in the minutes before the discussion starts. And
it's for everybody.
Right, exactly.
We will read and answer your question.
Right, and also you could be live with us if you send us your address and we can send you the link. Also, to reach us, you can find us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/toujours vivant, not dead yet. You can go to our website at tvndy.ca. You can email me at info@tv-ndy.ca, or you can follow me on Twitter @TVNDY. Thanks for being with us. Thank you, Christian.
See you next week.
And we look
Take
forward
care.
to see you next week.
Okay, take care and
Goodbye.
goodbye.